Welcome to episode 347 of the AM PM podcast. We're just wrapping up the $1 Billion Seller Summit in Puerto Rico today. We've got a VIP dinner tonight. We've got some cool presentations and stuff going on today. But that doesn't stop the podcast from continuing on. And I've got an awesome guest this week. It's Ashlin Hadden. Ashlin is someone who's really passionate about helping e-commerce sellers. She loves what she does. And we're going to be talking about insurance. Yeah, I know. You're like, okay, stop the hit pause right now. This is going to be boring. Actually, she's got some really cool stories and some really good tips on some things you probably haven't thought about. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And don't forget, this summer, I'm debuting the $1 Billion Sellers newsletter. It's 100% free for listeners of this podcast. So be sure to go to $1billionsellers.com and put in your email address and name to get on the beta list so you can be one of the first to get this brand new newsletter. It's going to be chock full of advice and tips and strategies and hacks for e-com and Amazon sellers. $1billionsellers.com.
Welcome to the AM/PM podcast. Welcome to the AM/PM podcast, where we explore opportunities in e-commerce.
We dream big and we discover what's working right now.
Plus, this is the podcast where money never sleeps, working around the clock in the AM and the PM.
Are you ready for today's episode?
I said, are you ready? Let's do this. Here's your host, Kevin King. Kevin King.
Ashlin Hadden, welcome to the AMPN podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kevin?
It's always good to see you because you always have this big smile on your face. It always cheers up my day. You're like, I'm always so serious, and then like you're always like just happy. Everything is good. Even though behind the scenes, I know it's probably like you're dealing with this client and that client and this thing. How's everything going for you?
Things have been really, really well. Slowed down for the next couple of months and really kind of just diving into some of the new changes and enjoying some time at home with my kiddos. So it's not been too bad the last couple of months. So excited to spend the summer a little bit lower key.
Awesome. So I think we first met, I knew your name, maybe it's 2015, 2016. There was this, everybody was freaking out back then because Amazon was shutting down accounts, as they still do. But they were shutting down accounts and it was like really messing with people. And you couldn't, POAs weren't always working. And, people didn't know what to do. It wasn't as sophisticated of a system, with all these agents and all these people that help you now. And all of a sudden there was people saying, hey, Lloyd's of London is offering insurance for if your account gets shut down, they will pay you, I forget what it was, up to $1 million or $2 million or something like that, some amount, of lost sales and everything. I was like, holy cow, this is freaking awesome. So I remember Manny and I from Helium 10 talking about, I was like, we got to check into this. And so we checked into it, and it turns out it was you behind the scenes there. You had something going on with Lloyd's in London and you just kind of burst onto this scene. What was that back then? I signed up for it. I paid like $5,000 or something for it. I never had to use it, but because I heard stories afterwards, or they had all these little reasons where they don't have to pay you out.
Right.
So what was that back then?
Yeah. So back in the day, when I first started into the e-com space, I just got phone call after phone call from sellers saying, hey, I'm getting suspended from Amazon for no reason. I'm not doing anything wrong. And they were like, I need your help. And I was starting to do the general liability and product liability. But the biggest pain point was suspensions. So I was like, well, I really need to work on finding a solution for the suspensions. Just because everyone.
So before this, just to back up a second, you were just an insurance agent, and people just happened to find you to actually ask you for e-com stuff, or did you decide, hey, I'm going to go after this?
One of my personal lines clients came to me. So I was doing their home, auto, and life insurance, and he came to me and said, hey, I sell online. I need this insurance. And I had no idea that there was even third-party sellers online. I just thought Amazon sold everything. So he came to me and was like, I need this insurance. So I was working with him and a couple of other clients doing that first. But then after he posted my information in a Facebook group. Then it went from, 2 or 3 clients doing e-com to thousands of people contacting me about e-commerce insurance. And it was just the overlying theme is, yeah, we need this liability insurance, but really what I'm scared about is being suspended. And it hit me one day when someone says, I roll over in the morning and before I kiss my wife good morning, I check my phone to see if I'm suspended. And I was like, that's just crap. Like, what a way to live. And I knew that there wasn't any type of product out there currently that we could help with. So I was like, let's see if we can create something. So one of my broker friends put me in contact with Lloyd's of London, and we started this policy. But I was young, dumb, and didn't really know a whole lot about what I was doing. And I never got a contract of exclusivity with Lloyd's of London. So I thought I was building this policy. It was going to be me and only me. And then this other company comes in and they're selling it and I'm selling it and they're telling people one thing and I'm telling somebody the other thing. And then in this application, Lloyd's asked a question about inquiries. So it was, have you ever been suspended? Yes or no? Have you ever had an inquiry? Yes or no? Well, nobody knew what an inquiry was. So when things happened and there was claims, they used that as an excuse not to pay out a claim. They said that, hey, these people lied on their applications. We're not going to pay the claim. So the very first claim I ended up paying out of pocket because it was my name. This is what I told people it would do, and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And I felt like it was my duty to pay the claim, even though it was declined from the carrier. So I paid the claim and I was like, I'm done. If this is not doing what I'm telling people it's supposed to do, I'm not selling it anymore. So I backed out and I stopped selling it. The other company was still selling it. And then it went belly up after I stopped. So it wasn't exactly what we hoped it would be, but we tried. And we're going to do it again. We just got to figure out the right way to do it and the right carrier who's going to do it the right way.
You know if they actually ever paid out anything on that, or do they always find a reason not to?
I don't know because I backed out. I wasn't going to put my reputation behind it if it wasn't going to do what they said it was going to do. So I'm sure there are. I mean, they had to have because they stopped doing it. They weren't profitable. So I'm sure they paid out some. I just don't know what.
I mean, insurance is always, a lot of people are like, Kevin, you got a podcast with someone about insurance, this boring stuff. Just give me some sexy marketing. How can I make
sexy, Kevin?
How can I make some money? What? Oh, man, I'm just going to fast forward through this episode. No, don't do that because we got some cool stuff, I'm sure, we're going to be talking about.
Really sexy claim stories, too.
Yeah, Ashlin always has like really fascinating stories about claims and about crazy stuff that's happened that you're not going to want to miss out on. But when it comes to insurance and e-commerce, a lot of people are like, they don't understand it. Someone says, hey, you got to have insurance. And they're like, okay, I'll call my State Farm agent and get some insurance. That's one type of insurance that they might be able to help you out. But there's different types. There's product liability. There's general liability. And there's specialists that specialize in those, and you have to go to certain agents to get them. And Amazon, for the longest time, has required this. I remember when I first started selling 8-9 years ago as an FBA seller, it said if you sell more than $10,000 a month for 3 months in a row, you have to have a liability policy to us. They never really enforced that until, I remember like maybe a year or 2 years ago, they actually started notifying people. And now they're getting quite a bit more serious about that because of some incidents that's happened and just to protect themselves. So what's the difference between general liability and product liability? Because you need actually both.
Yeah, so Amazon requires that you have both. And the new rule is that once you hit the $10,000 in 1 month, that's when they're requiring you to show proof of insurance.
That's so gross sales, not what you get paid. Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're wholesale or private label, or it doesn't matter what you're doing. Okay.
Nope. You could be selling a toothpick, and they don't care. Like once you hit that that 10,000, they require that. So it's always been in the terms of service that you have it. Now they're saying, hey, once you hit that amount, you need to send me a certificate of insurance, and if you don't, then they send you the nastygram, and then we are seeing people get suspended. So we can talk about the certificate of insurance later, but what they're saying you need is a general liability with product liability. And so general liability is really what you do or say as a business. It's going to cover you putting up a listing or you hopping on someone else's listing. And let's say you sell chapstick and you say this chapstick's going to make your lips look sexy and voluptuous. And someone buys it and says, this is crap. This is false advertisement. And they sue you. That's general liability. Well, that's what you do or say as a business. Now, let's say that chapstick breaks you out, you have an allergic reaction, you go to the ER. That's product liability. That's what your products do to harm someone else or harm someone else's personal property. So what you do or say as a business is general liability. What your products do to harm someone else is your product liability.
And Amazon requires, was it a $1 million or $2 million? $1
million. Yep. You have to have $1 million of both.
$1 million of both. And that, but there's a huge difference in the price between the two. General liability, in my experience, has typically been $500 to $700 a year, or maybe a little bit cheaper. Just depends on where you go. And that one's not too bad. But then the product liability, though, is based on what you're selling, how much you're selling, how long you've been selling, where you're selling it,
from,
where you source it from, and that can be thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Depending on your product, right? So one of my biggest things is like when you go online and you're going onto Amazon's preferred provider list or you're Googling, insurance for Amazon sellers, there's a lot of companies out there that'll say, we'll insure you for $24.99 a month or whatever. You got to be careful because some of those things aren't exactly what Amazon wants. Yes, it might be general liability, but it sure isn't going to cover product liability. So again, that's kind of where we said, you go to your local State Farm. Well, if your State Farm agent isn't versed in e-commerce, he might sell you that $24 a month policy that you think you have coverage, but you really don't have the right coverages. So you need an agent who knows what you're doing, but doesn't do what you do. I always say that, like, I know what you know, but I don't do what you do.
A lot of people are like, that's just a big thing. I mean, my product, it's not going to hurt anybody. I'm selling, something that's not going to hurt anybody, and it just seems like a waste of money. Why am I paying $5,000 a year for product liability insurance because I'm selling a couple $1,000,000? So they don't do it. But I look at it as like, yeah, you're paying $5 million a year, and maybe you're going to pay that for the next 10 years, and nothing ever happens. You paid $50,000, but then on year 11 is boom. Somebody makes some crazy, ridiculous claim about something. If someone sues me for my toothpick, like in your example, it stabbed me and caused me to bleed. I get sued, I get served a lawsuit, and then what do? Do I call my insurance company and say, "Hey guys, deal with this"?
And then we call the carrier.
So I call you. So I get I get served the lawsuit, and then I call you, not my attorney, but I call you.
Correct.
Okay.
And insurance companies don't like to pay claims, right? Everybody knows that. So they hire the best darn attorneys to get you out of the lawsuit. Your example is very, very close to an example that we actually had. We had a seller that was just reselling, not private label. They were not responsible for the product, nothing. Let's call it the toothpick. They were selling toothpicks, RA, and somebody bought them on Amazon. It was fulfilled FBA. USPS shipped it to their house. The guy opens the door, trips over the box, breaks his hip, and breaks his clavicle. Well, he sues Amazon, he sues USPS, and he sues our third-party seller. So our third-party seller has, again, nothing to do with it, but they have to defend you. Like, you can't just pick up the phone and say, sorry, I didn't have anything to do with this. Can you drop me off the lawsuit? No, you still have to go through the proceedings. And it was over $40,000 in legal fees just to get this guy's name dropped from the lawsuit. He did nothing. My client did nothing wrong and had to spend, well, if he didn't have insurance, it would have cost him $42,000 in legal fees. But since he had a policy, he calls me, we call his carrier, we start a claim, and the carrier handles everything else. His policy was $700 a year. First year selling, within the first 9 months really of selling, and he had a $42,000 claim. What you say about I don't sell anything risky, you still can be pulled into a lawsuit. You can say, hey, I have an LLC. Cool. Pick up the phone and call your LLC. See if they'll defend you. There's nobody there to pick up the phone. Like, I'm so happy you have an LLC, and that might protect your assets, from an actual judgment, but they will not defend you. The biggest thing you'll use this policy for is the legal defense.
So I remember when COVID hit, and I was doing a company called Germ Shark. We got into that business with wipes and hand sanitizer, and we had to get insurance. I mean, these are dangerous goods. They can explode. They're going on the skin. There was a lot of problems with some of the ingredients people were using at the time. And I remember we went out there and priced it, and it was crazy. And then you worked some magic to actually get us a reasonable price on this. And what are some products that are difficult to insure, like adult products or hazardous products, or what are some things that are?
So I have a list. On the body, so any type of topicals, any type of lotions, anything that's going on the skin. In the body, so anything, of course, that's ingested, your food, your nutraceuticals, those kinds of things. For a child, anything made for a child is going to be high risk. I don't care if it's a bib or a blanket. Anything made for a child is automatically going to be high risk. For a pet, anything that goes with water. So that can be canoes, little baby pools, life jackets, things like that, and exercise and outdoor equipment. So on the body, in the body, for a pet, for a child, outdoor equipment, anything to do with water, and exercise equipment right now. That's your
Those are going to cost you more, or just be harder to get? Okay, cost you more.
Both. So it's going to cost you more, and then it's going to be harder to insure. Most standard carriers, which is like your low risk carriers, won't touch those types of products if you're the brand owner. Now, if you're just reselling, it's a little bit easier. But if you're the brand owner of any of those types of products, is going to go what we call surplus lines, which is just a high risk carrier. So you're going to look at a little bit more expensive.
I know it's not just Amazon that's requiring this stuff though too. Like I sell in the office products, I sell calendars, and I have to, for like calendars.com, the big company that has all the malls and the kiosk in the malls and stuff at the holidays and on the store. I have to provide, they don't make me provide product liability, but I have to provide general liability. And if you go into Walmart or any retail, you're going to have this stuff. So it's not just Amazon.
You don't have to have separate policies normally. As long as you have the same EIN and you're filing the same taxes per the entity, typically we can do one policy and cover multiple platforms. So if you're selling on Amazon, eBay, Wayfair, Jet, and you're moving into Bed Bath & Beyond and you have a kiosk, as long as that's all through the same entity, typically we can make one policy and extend liability to all of them. So again, that's why you need an agent that knows what you're doing and not have to have 6 different agents all over the country who has no idea what the heck they're doing.
Have you heard a horror story out there of someone that didn't have insurance and something happened to them selling on Amazon?
Yeah. So we had one who came to us, and they were selling in the exercise equipment arena. And it was one of those products that you put over the door frame, and you're doing
resistance. Yeah, it's one of those resistance. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And one of the bands snapped, hit this guy in the eye, ended up suing. And they really were just trying to come back and say, hey, well, we already had how to install it. We had warning labels. We told them what the right way to do it was. And they were really trying to back out of the claim, saying hey, this is user error. We didn't do anything wrong. Same thing with trampolines. Everybody has those trampolines and there's warning labels all over the trampolines. If you get hurt, you can't sue us. Unfortunately, those don't work. I mean, you can put whatever you want on there, but people are still going to sue you, and you're still going to have the legal fees. So that's really my biggest horror story is when you don't end up doing it, you still have to defend yourself. And there's thousands, like I said, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees.
So which one covers if I have a warehouse or I'm storing a bunch of products in my garage or something? Yeah. Which one of those policies, is that a separate policy, or is it covered on
separate policy?
It's a separate policy.
It can be an endorsement on the, depending on the state. If you're in Florida, then it has to be a separate policy. But if you're in a reasonable state, it can be an endorsement on your current policy, and that's inventory coverage or business personal property. And I'll give you a horror story on that one. One of these, I won't say a name, but there is one community leader that came to me and had his products in a warehouse and needed the inventory covered. And I sent him the quote. And he's like, oh, well, that's too expensive. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll look at this again next year and maybe I'll do it then. Well, they were moving some racking around and needed to move this pipe. There was a pipe that was in the way. And so they turned off the water, rerouted the pipe, put the racking up. Everything's good to go. Ended up cracking somewhere in the pipe that he added and got 4 inches of water in his warehouse. And he had toys. And so 4 inches of the bottom of all of his toys that were on the ground were destroyed. And he had over $300,000 in damage to his inventory and didn't have coverage. So he called me back and he's like, hey, can I get that coverage now? And I was like, no. Unfortunately, I can't cover something that's already happened in the past, but I can help you moving forward. But it's those types of things is, I always say, I can't insure a burning building. If the building's on fire, you're too damn late. If you get a policy today and you have a claim yesterday, I can't help you. But if you get a policy today and you have a claim tomorrow, then yes, I can. So I guess you just bite the bullet and do it. Most people aren't in the $1,000 range anyways, if you're just RA, OA wholesale. If you're not doing $1 million a year, you can have a sometimes $600, $700, $800 policy. It doesn't have to be thousands and thousands of dollars.
So does past history, like in this case, affect you? When you get car insurance, if you get a bunch of speeding tickets or you've had a history of accidents, it's going to jack your rate. Right. Or even during a policy, say the policy is good for 3 years or a year or whatever, and you have something. When it comes time to renew, they jack you because they just had to pay out a big claim, or they drop you. Does that happen with product and general liability insurance as well?
It does. It does. I mean, insurance is all about risk. And if there's been a past history of claims, then that does tell them that it would potentially have more of a risk moving forward. But in the case of Jim, there's no way that, he didn't have an insurance policy, so there was nothing to turn in. So there was no, we didn't have to say that there was a claim prior to, because there wasn't a claim. You just eat the cost. Mm-hmm. So it really just depends on, do you turn in a claim or you don't turn in a claim? Sometimes if you have $1,000 loss, you just eat the $1,000 loss and don't turn in the claim. Same kind of thing with auto insurance. You get a little fender bender and you can talk the guy into, hey, here's $200, go away. Don't submit the claim. You can do that. But even
in car insurance, recently my wife had scratched up the side of her car a few months ago, and I took it to the body shop, and insurance probably would have paid that, but I paid a $500 deductible or something, and it would have been on my record, versus I just paid them $900 or something, right. and they fixed it. But that still goes on Carfax. So it doesn't go in the insurance, but it's still there, right. If a future buyer or something has it. Right. So it's hard to hide unless your buddy, or you do it yourself, or your buddy down the street does
but insurance companies don't look at Carfax.
Yeah.
So you really probably saved yourself hundreds of dollars in your renewal next year.
Yeah, that's why I did it that way.
Insurance companies get their money. I hate to say it because, I'm an insurance agent, but they're going to get their money. So if you can pay for it out of pocket and not submit a claim, then that's always the best thing to do. But insurance is there for catastrophic events. That's what insurance was designed for. Insurance wasn't designed for a $250 scratch. Insurance was designed for a $100,000 bodily injury claim. Yeah. It was designed for a $50,000, that kind of stuff. It's not designed for small little claims.
With my health insurance, for example, I use Oscar since I'm self-employed, and I get some of the highest deductibles because it's exactly that. It's a lot of times it's cheaper for me just to pay out of pocket than to try to have them cover it. And it's there for if I get in a big car accident, or if I get cancer, or something along those lines. That's what I'm not trying to have it pay for my everyday stuff because in the end, like you said,
But
they
you
get
and I
them.
are different, Kevin. We get that, but a lot of people don't. They're like, oh, well, I pay for insurance, so I'm going to submit this $500 claim.
Yeah.
Well, that's why insurance is so expensive, because everybody submits a little $500 claim, and that increases everybody else's prices.
Yep.
If people would stop submitting $500 claims, our insurance prices would go down.
So how do insurance agents make money? Do you get to keep the whole first premium, or you get a percentage?
Totally.
Do you get money? Do you get money on a recurring basis as they renew?
So we get paid through the insurance carrier. So we don't get paid by you guys at all. We get a percentage of commission off of the policy premium. And then depending on what type of policy it is, there could be a renewal commission also. So that's why we try to keep you guys happy. We want you to stick with us.
That's not, I mean, if someone does a $500 general liability policy, you're not making much money.
No, we're not.
For all that time and effort that you got to put into it, and the paperwork and everything.
So like when I first got into this business, and the policies were $500, and I was like, this is, it's going to cost me months to handle this, because again, this was brand new, nobody was doing it. I was like, I might make $50 on this. I was like, I'm going to spend months doing this. But I fell in love with this community, and I fell in love with these sellers, and I fell in love with like stuff like this, where you guys are truly trying to help each other grow and learn and expand. And the more people I talk to, and the more conferences that I went to, you guys sucked me in. Like, you suckered me like nobody's business.
So now you have quite a few people working for you now too. I mean, it's grown, because you're like the top in the space, right? You probably have the most clients in this e-com space. I know there's a few others out there, but
definitely as a broker, definitely has the most as a broker. Now I'm not like, I don't know about each one of the carriers. I'm sure they have more than me, but yeah, I have 15 women. All of the people that work for me are women. A lot of them are single moms or women getting back into the workforce. And I have the best team that anyone could ever ask for. From my office manager to my front desk lady, the women are just absolutely amazing.
There's some other insurances too that a lot of sellers don't think about. I'm partners with, and several of my businesses, I have partners. And one of the things that I've always worried about is what if something happens to one of them? What if one of these guys, gets hit by a bus walking across the street, or has a heart attack? And I know sellers who this has happened to. I know there's a big, huge 8-figure seller that a few years ago was partners with another guy, and the guy just died. And I know another guy out of Florida, he's out of Tampa, that he's doing really well in e-commerce, had another partner, and one of his dreams was to take his kids to every Disneyland in the world. So he took like a month or 2 months and flew them to Paris and Shanghai and Orlando and LA and Hong Kong and wherever else they are, Tokyo. And then when he got back, 3 days later, he died. And he was like 50 years old. And it affected she had to end up closing the business because she didn't know what to do. So what type of insurance can cover something like that, like a key man policy or something? What is that? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So it's a really great reminder to everyone. So a key man policy is like a life insurance policy. So let's say we're married and you pass away, and your life insurance policy goes to your wife. So it's the same type of situation, but instead of it going to your partner's spouse, it goes to the business. So it's then a write-off for the business. So it can be used as a tax deduction as a business expense. And then 2, once that person were to pass away, it goes to the business to help you either hire a replacement, pay off debts, try to hire someone to come in and help run the business if you don't know how to run the business, hire consultants, things like that. So it would be a non-taxable income, so you can continue to run the business. Or you could say, heck, I don't want to run the business anymore. I'm going to use this funds to hire somebody to come sell the business and take my money and run. So it really is a good way, if you have multiple people into the business, to help protect your assets if somebody were to pass away. How
does that work on the payment? Is you set the amount, like $500,000 or $1 million, and that's the policy?
So you can do it either way. So you can say, hey, Ashlin, I don't want to spend more than $7,000 a year on this policy. And we can back it up and say, okay, for $7,000 for this type of person, this height, this weight, we can give you $250,000 in coverage. Or you could say, I need $250,000 in coverage for this person, this person, this person, and we'll tell you how much it is. So we can kind of do it either way. Most people do it the second way where they say, okay, I know it's going to cost me XYZ to hire somebody else. And I know we've got this amount in debt. We have this amount in credit cards. We got a line of credit for this. So I need $500,000. And then we would run the quote that way. So it really depends on how you guys wanted to work it, but we could do it either way.
So do you have to, is it like life insurance where I have to go get a physical and stuff, or it's just, you just put your height and weight, or do they look at your condition?
If you're young enough, sometimes you don't have to do a physical, but majority of the time people want more than like 50 grand. And so they're going to require a physical, but we take care of the cost of all of that. So like the blood draws and anything like that, the agency takes care of that. You literally just got to go give us your blood or give us your urine, depending on, again, how much of coverage you need.
Key man basically is life insurance for the business.
Is life insurance for the business. Yep.
There's
another one that we haven't talked about yet that I think is super, super important, is workers' comp.
Yeah.
If you have anyone who is an employee, not a 1099, but an employee, you should definitely have workers' comp. We have a lot of people say, well, they just sit at the desk and source all day or whatever. It doesn't matter. They still, again, can claim whatever they say they want to claim. We had an attorney in this e-com space, and one of his employees stood up and hit her head on a sconce, like on the back wall, and she's claiming permanent brain damage. She's under 30 years old and wants like $50 million because she's never going to be able to work again. And she just hit her head. So she was a desk employee, which typically super, super low risk. But again, it doesn't, shit happen. Oh, stuff happens and people sue. Yeah,
they do. People sue for the craziest things. So that
stupidest reasons. You
start adding all this up, though. This insurance, people listening, go, man, this is costing me a few pennies here. I mean, you can, if you're doing millions of dollars, this could be into the tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars just in annual insurance for if you're doing everything right.
Scare them away. No, it's not. Not everybody is that high. You just like to sell risky crap, Kevin. Like I said, most of my RA/OA sellers are typically, if they're not doing $1 million, they're typically under $1,000 a year in premium for the general liability.
Yeah, but I'm talking about if you add all the other stuff. If you add in the
and then you're depending again on your workers' comp. Most are under $1,000 of work comp. Depending on your products, depending like where you're storing them. If you're in Florida, it's going to be more expensive. But if you're in Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, like Midwestern, you can get coverage for under $1,000. So most people aren't super crazy unless they're storing millions and millions of dollars and they're selling like fidget spinners with knives on the ends of it. That's a real product I have insured. So
wow.
It's like a Death Star. That one's expensive.
There's another type of insurance that a lot of people they don't really think about, and that's insurance on your shipments. You know, especially insurance. Like with the what's that Evergreen or whatever that ship was that got stuck in the Suez Canal a couple of years ago, and then there's been a couple others of accidents at sea where containers just flew over the side of the boat. Do you help people with that type of insurance as well?
We do. I'm telling you, everything except health insurance. We can do your home and auto too. But cargo insurance is a little difficult. If you're shipping just a small amount of items over, I would say go with your freight forwarders insurance. Unless you're shipping containers over, then it's just typically not worth the cost of insurance because that is quite expensive. But if you're shipping the container, or a half a container, something like that, then absolutely we could get an annual policy for that. But that's like a one-off situation. We really need to talk about how much you're shipping and how often you're shipping and what the true cost of goods are.
What type of insurance covers the people in San Francisco when the hoodlums on the street break into the Apple store and steal all the iPhones, or they go into the CVS's and take $1,000 worth of stuff out? Is that product insurance, liability insurance? Is that property insurance, or what is that?
Yep. So that's your BPP, your business personal property. So that's going to be the same coverage as your inventory. So it typically goes on your general liability policy as an endorsement, unless you're in one of those high risk areas where it has to be one of the standalone policies.
And I know like a lot of, if you're using a 3PL, well, even if it's Amazon, Amazon had a fire in a warehouse in California like a year ago or so. And then I know there's been a few others in 3PLs that people use, even for their Shopify business or just to store some stuff. But a lot of times that inventory is not covered by their insurance. You're still responsible for it. So if you are storing a bunch of goods in a 3PL or even an Amazon warehouse and something happens to that warehouse, you're SOL in most cases. So how do you protect that?
Yeah, so that again is an endorsement that we add to the policy. And we extend the liability to an off-site premise.
Is that expensive?
About the same cost as the inventory coverage. So it doesn't matter if your inventory is at home, your garage, your mama's garage, a 3PL, like wherever you're storing it, you need to have it covered. We have a lot of people say, well, my 3PL is going to cover it if there's a fire or theft. I have over 100 3PLs currently insured, and 2 of them cover your inventory. Everybody else says you're on your own for inventory. So if you're using a 3PL, just pick up the phone and call them. Say, hey, do you have my inventory covered under your policy? And if they say yes, say, prove it. Send me a certificate of insurance showing that my inventory is covered. It's not much more to just extend your policy to that 3PL. I'm a control freak, so I want to know that it's done and covered the right way. So I would just do it myself, because anytime they can drop that coverage, they don't have to let you know. So yeah, it could be covered today, but what if they forget to pay their bill tomorrow? And you're out that. So if you've got any substantial amount of inventory in your 3PL, I would just add it to your current policy.
And that goes for Amazon too, right? Stuff stored in Amazon fulfillment centers.
Once they accept it, then it's on their policy. But in the transition from the time that it gets into their system, that is not covered under their policy.
What would I need to cover? I ship in 10 pallets to Amazon and they claim they never received it. I've got all the bill of lading. There's no insurance for that?
There's no insurance for that yet.
Okay. Someone needs to come up with that insurance. That should be that would be a good one, because I hear those stories all the time. That you shipped it and then they say they didn't receive it. You provide proof that it was shipped and like, sorry, we didn't get it. Good luck.
We're working on it, Kevin.
You're working on it. All right.
We're working on it.
All right.
Yeah, listen, you guys come to me and say, hey, here's my pain points, and we try to fix them. But insurance is slow. Insurance companies are slow. But we're working on that one.
What exactly is a certificate of liability? And you have to send that to Amazon, and in this you said about the 3PL, they should prove it to you. Does it? If the 3PL proves it to me, does it have to name me on there that I'm covered, or how does that work?
Yeah, so a certificate of insurance, it is a snapshot in that day and time that you write the certificate of insurance. So I can give you a certificate of insurance right now, and tomorrow your policy lapses, and there is nothing you can do about it. So to have a true certificate of insurance for Amazon, I think is, between you and I and everyone listening, is kind of bogus, because it could change in a heartbeat. I could call tomorrow and cancel it. But it gives you an idea of what's going on in that specific day and time. Now, Amazon has said, hey, we need that certificate of insurance and we need it uploaded into Seller Central. And then they started to realize, okay, somebody could call tomorrow and cancel the policy. So then they changed it to say, you have to list me as an additional insured. And if you cancel the policy, then your insurance carrier has to notify me. So they got a little smart, and now they have the additional insured with the certificate cancellation form. So if you cancel the policy, then they get informed. But you have to upload it a certain place. You have to put certain numbers in certain fields. So again, you kind of have to have an agent who knows what they're doing to show you what to do. So we have this whole video on put this here, put that there, put this here, put that there kind of thing. But it's a pain in the butt.
This insurance stuff sounds really exciting. Tell me another really cool story, some fascinating story that you've seen, some crazy claim that was made, or that someone had to pay out some crazy amount, or what's something else?
So the biggest claim that we've had so far is $608,000. That's the biggest one that we've seen.
Were you around when that whole hoverboard thing happened?
I wasn't, but I use that in my presentations all the time. One, because nobody was actually hurt, which is great. And the dog and the cat made it out alive, which was great. And that's kind of what speared this whole thing with Amazon, is they keep coming back and saying, like, they're tired of being on the hook for people putting bad products on the market. They want you guys as the third-party seller to make sure you're doing your due diligence and putting safe products on the market. So that's really kind of how things started with that. And then the whole dog leash. There was it wasn't our client, but there was some guy out walking the dog, and he was a surgeon, one of those retractable dog leashes. And the dog pulled away, and the dog leash broke and snapped back and hit him in the eye. And then he's claimed that he could never do surgery again because now his peripheral vision is screwed up. And I think really that was kind of what spurred Amazon to be like, all right, we're done. We're tired of you guys putting crap products from China onto this platform. We're tired of getting sued. We're tired of spending all of this money on legal fees. You guys are going to start spending money on legal fees. That's when they decided to make you put them as an additional insured. So now you are defending Amazon in case of a lawsuit.
What about like data and stuff? Is there's something around, like, if someone hacks my computers and gets all my customer email list, or you see these cases where some big retailer gets 8 million accounts were compromised. Is there insurance for any of the abuse against that? Yeah.
So that's cyber insurance. And Amazon does pretty well with their cyber stuff. So if you're just selling FBA, I would say maybe that's one that you keep a couple $100 in your pocket for. But if you're doing anything Shopify, eBay, your own website, things like that, where you're taking non-public or private information, that's where I would pick up the cyber insurance. If you're collecting date of birth, credit card information, addresses, things like that on any one of the platforms, then you need to look at cyber insurance.
Is that expensive?
And that would cover if you're hacked.
Is that expensive?
Not too bad. Again, it's based on your sales, how much you're selling, so how much you're interacting with people. But most of those policies, you're looking at, maybe $700 to $1,000 a year.
What does that cover? Is it just cover? I mean, because the credit card companies, if someone steals the credit card information, the credit card companies will deal with that. But what's it cover if someone sues you for violating my privacy or something? Or what does it cover you?
Typically, you have to pay for a monitoring service for everyone that was hacked for a year. Depending on the state, sometimes it's 3 years. So that could be, $24 a month per person who was hacked.
Like LifeLock kind of things or something like that?
Like a LifeLock. It covers the cost to inform your clients that there's been a hack. It costs any type of let's say they got hacked and somebody actually took the funds, it would cover the cost to reimburse them those funds. So those types of things. Okay.
What else do we need to know about insurance? What did we not cover here?
I think the only other one that you haven't covered yet, we like to suggest is commercial auto insurance. So if you're using your personal vehicle for business use, so let's say you're sourcing in your personal vehicle, you're going back and forth to USPS, you're going back to the UPS store, those types of things. If you're in a car accident on business time, your personal auto insurance can deny the claim. So again, if you're using your business or your personal auto for business, you really should have a commercial policy. Along with that, the inventory coverage during that. So inventory off premise. So let's say I'm sourcing at Kohl's and I have $10,000 in product in my car and I go to Target and someone breaks into my car and steals my $10,000 worth of product. Typically, your personal auto insurance is not going to cover that. So business is business, personal is personal. If you're using your business or your personal vehicle for business, you need a commercial policy.
Got it. So I need to get like 18 different policies here to make sure that my butt is covered.
I'll wait your check, Kevin.
All right. As soon as we get off here, tell me the total and I'll send you the money.
All right.
No, but and seriously, if people want to learn more about this, or maybe they're realizing, hey, I need to straighten up my ship here and get my ducks in a row. How would they reach out to you? How would they find out more?
Yeah, the easiest thing to like start learning about the different products is our website, www.ecom.insure. So ecom.insure. Don't throw a .com at the end. It is just .insure. You can always email me, sales@Ashlin Hadden Insurance. You can call us, 765-432-8989. You can see me at one of the 22 conferences I do every year. You can find me on Facebook, Ashlin D as in dog, Hadden. Feel free to message me. Even if you're outsourcing and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about this product, shoot me a text message and I'll say, stay the heck away from that. Or yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm always around. I'm always here for free advice. I don't sugarcoat anything. I'll tell you like it is. So that's really the best way to do it.
I think you got something there for everybody. No matter what their choice of method of contact is, you got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Ashlin, I really appreciate you taking the time today to share with us. This is,
it was sexy,
I think, been
right?
it was sexy. We made it sexy. You were smiling the entire time. It was good. That's right. Well, thanks again, Ashlin. We'll see you at one of those 22 conferences, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kevin. Have a good night.
Ashlin, as usual, has some interesting stories to tell, some of the experiences he's had when it comes to insurance. And insurance is something that a lot of us just gloss over, but it's very important to take a look at all the different types of insurance and just see why it's something that I didn't do in the beginning, and it actually came back and bit me once or twice. And now I like to check all those boxes off. And hopefully Ashlin's giving you some good information to give you some food for thought. If you missed the $1 Billion Seller Summit and you'd like to get the replay, I normally don't make replays available for the live events, but this one there's quite a few people that could not make it because of graduations, because of school and other things. So if you go to billiondollarsellersummit.com/replay, REPLAY, then you can actually get some information on catching the video replays from the $1 Billion Seller Summit. We'll be back again next week with another really awesome episode. It's going to be really, really cool. I think you'll really like it. But before we go, I've got some good advice for you. It kind of plays into what Ashlin was talking about. You know, it's not about what someone can do for you. It's who and what the two of you become together. It's not about what someone can do for you. It's who and what the two of you become when you're together. Have a great week. See you next Thursday.